This podcast contains graphic content and may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is strongly advised.
True North True Crime is produced on the territories of the Coast Salish people.
What it comes down to is he lost the control. He couldn't control her anymore. And I think in his eyes, if he couldn't have her anymore, nobody was going to have her.
April 13th, 2024 began as a typical day for Jason, Tatjana, and her two children, Selena and Jan. Tatjana and her ex-husband, Vitali, shared custody of their kids, and Tatjana was doing her best to remain civil in the wake of a messy divorce. Vitali Stefanski had been an abusive partner to Tatjana, and the abuse did not end with their divorce. In fact, it escalated. But Tatjana had met a new partner, Jason, and the two were very happy together in the community of Lumby, British Columbia. However, their peace was disrupted by threatening messages that Tatjana continued to receive from her ex-husband, Vitali. The situation worsened to the point where Jason urged Tatjana to get a protection order against Vitali, but she hesitated, fearing it would maybe create more problems. Jason made her promise, however, to never be alone with Vitali, and Tatjana agreed. Vitali showed up at Jason and Tatjana's property on April 13th, 2024, asking to speak to his son Jan regarding Vitali's plans to possibly move away. At some point, Vitali managed to lure Tatjana to the top of the driveway near his parked vehicle as Jan walked back towards the house. All that was heard next was a scream, and suddenly, Vitali, the car, and Tatjana were gone. This is the case of Tatjana Stefanski, and you are listening to True North True Crime.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 99 of True North True Crime. I'm your host, Caitlin, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Graham. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like more True North True Crime, you can subscribe to TNTC Plus on Apple Podcasts or on Patreon. For $5 a month, you'll have access to bonus content. All episodes will be completely ad-free, and you'll get early access to our regular episodes as well. You can find us at TNTC Pod on Instagram or search for True North True Crime on Facebook and give us a follow there in order to keep up with updates on cases that we have covered previously. If you have a case suggestion for us, please send us an email to truenorthtruecrime@gmail.com. We do give priority to family members or close contacts of a case, but we welcome suggestions from all of our listeners. In today's episode, we are going to be speaking to the victim's partner, Jason Gaudreault. You'll be hearing his voice throughout this episode in order to paint a more detailed and first-hand picture of what this family has had to endure. Before we get started, we would like to thank Jason for taking the time to sit down with us and share details about what a beautiful person Tatjana Stefanski was and the ways that this horrific crime has impacted and continues to impact her family and her community. We also want to highlight that Jason is still very much in acute grief as this murder happened just 2 months ago in April of 2024. We are recording this episode in June of 2024. Our interview with Jason happened to take place on the weekend that an arrest took place in connection with this case. We'd also like to thank the listener who reached out to us asking us to bring attention to this story and who also connected us with Jason. Okay, with that, let's get into some details about the location in which today's episode takes place.
This case takes place in the village of Lumby. Lumby is located in the northeastern part of the Okanagan region of British Columbia. Now, Lumby is small with just 2,063 residents according to the 2021 census. Lumby is about a 25-minute drive from Vernon, British Columbia, and Lumby is a great place to call home if you prefer a rural lifestyle while still having access to the amenities of a larger city. The village of Lumby is surrounded by beautiful mountains, forests, and rivers, making it a haven for outdoor enthusiasts. Lumby, British Columbia has a humid continental climate with hot summer days and cool nights and significant temperature variations. These fluctuations hit hard, particularly in August. Positioned between a semi-arid dry belt and an interior rainforest, Lumby features a mix of wet and dry vegetation, including natural grasslands. Economically, Lumby relies heavily on agriculture, forestry, and tourism. Tourists flock to the region to explore the beautiful provincial parks, including Monashi Provincial Park, Maple Lake Provincial Park, and Echo Lake Provincial Park. Now, this area is popular for hiking, mountain biking, fishing, and camping. According to AreaVibes.com, Lumby has a violent crime rate 55% lower than the national average, and overall crime is 40% lower than the national average. Lumby itself is a beautiful, close-knit, and safe community, making it an ideal place to call home, and it's easy to see why Jason and Tatjana chose to settle here and look forward to their future in the village.
Let's get into Tatjana Stefanski. Unfortunately, there's hardly any background information about Tatjana online, but we do know that she was born in Russia and grew up in Germany. Here's what Jason said when we asked him what he knows about Tatjana's early life.
Not really a whole lot. She really didn't tell me much about her life in Germany, and really not a lot about her marriage. She always had difficulties with him. She was just such a loving person, extremely positive. What I do know of her past with him, anyway, is that he's always tried to control everything. Never, kept her on a tight leash. Never, any of her ideas were always wrong, not good enough. Just kept her under tabs all the time. And, they were fighting a lot, I guess, and fighting in front of the children. And that's pretty much what was the breakup with them. But other than that, she's just been such a hard worker, loves absolutely everything and everybody. Anybody that met her, your first impression is wow, this woman is beautiful and amazing and just positive.
We asked Jason more about the timeline of Tatjana's life and her relationship with her ex-husband Vitali. The two came to Canada about 10 years ago with their now 16-year-old daughter Selena. Tatjana and Vitali had a son after they arrived in Canada, Jan, who is now 9 years old. Jan was born in Alberta, where the couple initially settled. They came to Canada seeking a change of scenery and work. Vitali worked as a machinist back in Germany, and Tatjana took some payroll and accounting coursework when she got to Canada and landed a job at Cal Tire doing payroll work. We wanted to know more about what Tatjana was like. There is plenty of photos and videos of her online in various news stories about this case, and in each one you can really see what a warm and approachable woman she was. Here's Jason.
She would take the shirt off her own back, for somebody to walk across a puddle of mud, She absolutely loved everybody and she helped everybody. Even through all of this, just over the last few years, even talking about her ex, she just wanted him to do good and she wanted him to leave her alone so she can get on with her life and we could do our thing. It was just constant harassment. And, even at one point in time, he was furious having a talk with her. And she just reached out and touched him and just said, I want you to be happy. Move on, get a girlfriend, start a new life. And she said, most of all, be a dad. Start visiting your children when it's your time. Start having a better relationship with them and stop talking bad about me. Because he was constantly calling her names and uttering threats and this and that. And even through all of that, he would literally call her the C word, which I don't use. And he would call her that or tell people that she was a whore or a slut or something like that. And she'd be forgiving to him. She'd like, please just stop. But she would never call him a name. She's never called him a name to me. She said like he's being a jerk or whatever, but she's never said that he is one. She just, I've never, in 4 years of being with her, I've never heard her call anybody out or call a name to anyone.
As we've mentioned a few times in this episode, Tatjana and her husband Vitali eventually divorced. And as you've heard, detailed by Jason, the marriage between them was anything but loving and healthy. So we wanted to know how Jason and Tatjana met and started their relationship.
Well, yeah, so she was already separated she was separated from Vitali there for about a whole year before I met her. Um, well, basically what had happened was when they were together, they were like arguing a lot, and then they, never really had any money. So, with all the arguments and stuff, he chose to actually move out. So he moved from their residence in Vernon. Just they had like a little townhouse that they're renting. He moved to Kelowna to work, and I believe that his what his goal was is that he was going to gonna land a good job in Kelowna, and she's gonna come running back to him. Well, so he left, and within that year, she saved up, I don't know, probably close to $10,000. Plus, she assumed all of the rent, and she had so much more that she had to pay for. So anyway, they were separated for pretty much an entire year, and then she started going on to the Facebook dating app. She had met some kind of like an army or an ex-army guy, and she met me, and she just liked me better, which was great. So so we hit it off pretty good. The Our first date, we just met up. We went for a walk, um, and talked, and just about our likes and dislikes, and just got to know each other. And then and she knew I had a motorcycle, and she always wanted to get her motorcycle license and whatever else. So, and I think it was the motorbike that actually won her over. It wasn't me. um, because I don't know. You look at me and you look at her. It's like, how are those two together? Because she's like a supermodel, and look at this guy, rough and gruff. But but I have a huge heart. I have a huge heart. I will say that much. I may not look pretty. um, like just had this glow, just this amazing, beautiful woman, and her accent and her European style is just like, you are gorgeous. Like you're a knockout. So luckily enough, she chose me. So the second date, basically we just I told her, I said, I'm gonna bring my motorcycle on our second date. And I said, I'm not gonna take you for a ride on it yet and stuff because we didn't have any motorcycle gear. So I said, you know what, we'll take some pictures. So met up with her, and sure enough, she did a little photo shoot on my bike, and she loved it. She loved it. So it was really good. And then yeah, so that was pretty much about it. And then we just kept on seeing each other, and then within about a month to 2 months, we're like, you know what? I think we're dating. She's like, yeah, I think so too. So that was that.
You can really hear in the way that Jason speaks about Tatjana how in love with her he was. So, Tatjana and Jason dated for an entire year before deciding to make the leap and move in together in Lumby. Now, because Tatjana and Vitali were sharing custody of their 2 children, she gave him 60 days' notice that she was moving with them to Lumby. Vitali did not object. In fact, he didn't even respond. Jason told us more about what their day-to-day life was like together in Lumby.
Our routine was, get up, get the kids to school, and she'd go to the gym a couple days a week, and just a regular routine. We were happy. We had our little projects, and sometimes too many projects, but we were working on things. It was normal. It was good. It was healthy. We always went to bed together, and we always talked together. We always discussed things, our differences and what we wanted to do next. We built a business together, and the business is actually starting to take off really good until now. Well, I do custom powder coating. She recognized my talent and the things that I could do, and she told me to stop making a name for everybody else's business, powder coating businesses, and being run to the ground. And she said, "Start making a name for yourself, and you're going to do good." And I just told her, I said, I don't really have the financing behind me. And she's like, "I don't care. We're going to do it." So we did.
Jason and Tatjana had big plans for their life together. After experiencing financial instability from their previous relationships, they had finally reached a more stable position and secured a loan for long-awaited renovations to their shared home. Tatjana had always dreamed of a European kitchen, and Jason was eager to make that a reality for her. He also wanted to help Tatjana become a homeowner, and in January 2024, he succeeded in adding her name to the property title. She was finally a homeowner and was going to get that European kitchen. Things were going well for Tatjana and Jason. They were in a loving, committed relationship, the kids were happy, and their life together was normal. However, Vitali, like many abusive partners, couldn't stand to see Tatjana happy with someone else. We asked Jason when he came back into the picture and when Jason became concerned.
I was concerned when I first met her because he seemed to be fine with her, and then he found out that she had a boyfriend. And like he would go to her when she was still living in Vernon, before we moved in together. I would go to visit her, and after I'm done work, and I'd knock on the door, and she would come and she'd open up the door, and then we would sit down, we'd be talking. She'd say, "Oh yeah, my ex showed up today." And he just walked right into the house. And I'm on a conference call with Cal Tire. He just walked right on in. And then she told him, "You can't be doing this." And he basically flipped her off and said, "Well, I'm still on the lease. I can do what I want." So he was doing that. I wouldn't say on a continuous basis. Within that year, he probably did it 5, 6, 8 times, which it's the problem. Back then, he was being an issue. And I told her, I said, we're going to solve a lot of that by you moving out. And then you're going to be more protected by being at my place with me. And she was totally on board. Like, we already knew, like, we were in love and we cared about each other a lot. And we're like, yeah, this is the next move. But that I was concerned back then. And then I would say probably about 2 years ago is when he really started getting angry and uttering a lot of threats. I'm gonna get rid of you. Nobody will find you. I'm gonna like I'm gonna cut you up. I'm gonna kill you. Whatever. She wouldn't. She ended up stopping telling me because she knew how upset it made me. And I was always telling her, I'm like, we should report this. We should report this. I said, at least get a journal and start writing it down. And she didn't. She just didn't. And I finally, bare minimum, I told her to stop deleting her messages on her phone because he would text her in Russian, and he would just be going off about her doing black magic and like just cussing her out, like just constantly. And I don't know, like she wouldn't tell me anything about death threats, but I know he did a few times, just in the last year. And I know he had done it previously, but like I say, she stopped telling me because she knew I was very upset about it. But then in December, that one there, because she knew I caught wind of it because her dad was freaking out. And I was like, "What's that all about? What's it all about?" And she didn't want to tell me. And then I said, "No, you're telling me. What's that about?" And she told me. I was just like, "Okay, I'm done. We're reporting this now." So we did. And that's the one where the IIO is now involved in, right? So it was a few days prior. Basically, so Vitali had, we never had any outbursts from him or anything like that for probably 2 or 3 weeks, that I can recall. So like it seemed like he's like really kind of like just minding his own business. And then just out of the blue, all of a sudden he text messaged on WhatsApp to Tatjana's dad in Germany. And he said, if your effing daughter doesn't smarten up with her black magic BS, I'm going to cut her up and send her back to you in a body bag or something along those lines. And So obviously Roman, that's Tatjana's dad, he was freaking out. So he was called us. I think there was like 13 missed phone calls because there's like 9 hours difference, and our phones were on silent. We were sleeping. So basically, we woke up in the morning like, okay, what's going on? What's going on? We're all worried. Maybe there's a problem there. So we called, and he's just like, "Are you guys okay? Are you guys okay?" And anyway, so he told us, and I told Tatiana, I said, "You tell your dad," because they can't speak their language. I said, "You tell your dad, go get back into WhatsApp and go take a screenshot of those messages." He went back in. Vitali had retrieved those messages, so they were no longer able to be seen. We were Googling instructions on how to retrieve those messages if they've been deleted, and we just couldn't do it. So we got upset with Tatiana because she didn't want to do anything about it. And I said, no, we're reporting this. I'm done. So we went to the Lumby station, and that day, I think they were closed. Can't quite remember, but I think they were closed. So then we ended up. I just told her, I said, okay, well, we're going to Vernon. We'll go to the detachment in Vernon, and we'll let them open up a report. So they did. But she said, unfortunately, we can't do the complete reporting here in Vernon. She said, you'll have to do it in Lumby. So it's okay. Well, whatever. They're closed. So I think it was a Monday or something like that. We went back in when they were open, and or we hadn't. The constable, I think, had called Tatiana and arranged a time for us to go in to give them the report. So we did. So I think the report was on the 18th, but the threats were prior to that, a day or a few days before that. So we put our report in, and I told the police officers, I said, you know what? I'm like, we need a protection order. This is disgusting. Like, I'm like, it's one thing to be uttering a threat that you're going to kill somebody, but when you're specifically saying you're going to chop them up, send them in a body bag back to their dad, like, this is getting out there. This is like really, really sickening and serious. And the cops just kind of brushed it off. They said, well, you don't really have the evidence. I think they said that. Without the evidence, there's not much we can do. And I said, well, what do you mean? You don't need any more evidence. Like, we're telling you what he said. Oh, but you don't have the message, and it's too hard. We have to get permission from the German embassy or whatever to get a warrant for those text messages through WhatsApp and this and that. And they made it so elaborate. So, like, I'm putting my trust in them. Like, I don't know the law. I don't know if this can be done or can't be done, or if this is just the way it's supposed to be handled. But I told him, I said, well, we need a protection order. Oh, then you need a judge and and it's got to be okayed, and there's got to be probable cause or whatever. And then you don't have the evidence. He's like, he's just saying words. He's probably not going to do anything, and Um, so I was like, okay, I guess, I don't like this, but whatever. Um, they offered to do a wellness check on him, make sure he was okay, because he had Yan with him over that weekend. They went and they sent two members or a couple members from Kelowna, because he was in Kelowna at the time. Sent a couple members there to go and visit to make sure Yan was okay. And they talked. They said they were going to talk to him about the allegations, and they did. And of course, he's like, "Oh, I didn't. I didn't say anything like that." He denied it. He says, "Oh, she's full of shit. She's a liar." Whatever else, right? So we kind of just left it at that. We were like, okay, well, I guess there's nothing else they can do. We can't get a protection order, according to the police. And then now she's dead.
And we are back. So Jason and Tatjana had asked the police to place a protection order against Vitali. According to Jason, the police dissuaded them from pursuing the protection order, suggesting that Vitali's threats were just words and he was unlikely to act on them. It's important to note here that judges, JPs, and crowns place a high threshold on law enforcement in order to make sure that all police reports and protection orders do not threaten the rights of individuals involved. As we have stated here many times, in British Columbia, the police cannot file charges. The Crown Prosecutor does that. The police gather evidence of a crime and recommend if an individual should be charged. The Crown then has the ability to say no if they do not believe that they have a high likelihood of winning the case, or if the Crown believes that it is not in the interest of justice to move forward with charges. This is similar for things like protection orders. You got to get a judge to agree that there is enough stuff there in order to impede the rights of an individual. And as frustrating as it sounds for victims, the current system is seemingly skewing more in the direction of the alleged offenders rather than those the laws were originally designed to protect, the victims. It seems that in our desire to correct the past wrongs of our justice system, we have kind of overcorrected, especially in British Columbia. It should be noted here, as Jason pointed out, the complaint that Tatjana and Jason tried to file with the Lumby detachment, so that was the protection order they tried to get against Vitali. That complaint is now under review of the IIO, which is British Columbia's independent police watchdog. So here's Jason with more on the RCMP members that took their report at the Lumby detachment.
I truly hate people to lose their jobs over this, because I don't know what happened to the two members from Lumby here that actually did do the reporting. I know they're no longer in this detachment. I don't know if they're stationed elsewhere or if they're on leave. I really hate people losing jobs, but if they would have given us a protection order back then, like I had asked for, and taken us more seriously, Tatjana would still be here, possibly. And that's the hard thing, because with that protection order in place, he wouldn't have been able to come to the property.
So in December, the police did a wellness check on Vitali after Jason and Tatjana attempted to make a police report regarding the concerning messages that she was receiving. And it seems as though the visit from the police did have some impact on Vitali as his behavior changed.
Well, so after the reporting in December, it was sometime in like the first few weeks of January, he seemed to be like, okay, he kind of stepped back a little bit. He's started being a little bit nice. So Tatjana's like, oh, well, maybe we got through to him, right? Because the police had to talk with him. He was all worried about having a police record. And Tatjana said, you're not going to have a police record. Just be nice, be a dad. So everything seemed to be fine for a few months, leading up to the situation. Actually, sorry, for over a year, he had already been telling us that he was going to move. And I think this is where he was using it as an excuse to get her alone. And he was just telling us that he was going to move, but he'd never had intentions of moving. So this is where all the premeditation is coming in. I know for a fact this is premeditated, because when he was telling us a year ago that he was going to move, I think he was looking for an opportunity to grab her then, and he didn't get that option. He couldn't get her alone. He didn't have that chance. So now he was really, really pushing for it, I think. And he went as far as 2 weeks prior to actually 2.5 weeks prior to the murder. I don't have it here, but I actually have, he did a move out inspection on his apartment that he was renting in Kelowna. So he had moved out. The landlord there had no address where to send a check to or anything for refund for damage. He had no address that he was moving to. He had also rented a storage locker right next door. We live right next door to a storage facility. He rented a storage facility and he was putting all of his apartment contents in there. And about a week before, he had seen Yan, and he was telling Yan that everything that's in his storage locker is going to be his to keep because he's not going to need it where he's going. And we were a little concerned about that, but we figured, okay, well, maybe he's going to a camp job, or because like it wouldn't be anything really new to him, like doing camp or out of town work or anything like that. We kind of thought he was going back to some old roots back in Alberta to go work there back in Wetaskiwin with some friends of his. Anyway, so 2 weeks before this all happened, he started taking Yan on a daily basis and just running Yan to the ground. Yan came in with big bags under his eyes, tired, grumpy, really mad at mom, mad at me, just mad all in general. And I think it was just everything that his dad was feeding into his head. And he would always tell him, don't tell your mom. Don't tell your mom. Don't talk to them. Don't tell them what I'm telling you. It's private. It's secret. What do you think a 9-year-old's going to do? He's trusting his dad. This kid, Yan, absolutely bawling his eyes out when his dad wouldn't respond for his weekend to come out with him. This boy absolutely adored and loved his father.
Now, what's incredibly odd about this is the storage locker that Vitali was renting, or the one he chose to rent out of all the storage lockers in the whole Okanagan, which is a large area. He chose one that was 100 meters away from Jason and Tatjana's home. They can literally see it from their home. Do what you want with that information, but for us, it seems that was proximity-seeking behavior. Like, Vitali didn't even live in Lumby, but he chose to put his stuff in a storage locker literally across the street from Tatjana and Jason's home. The bottom line was that Vitali knew he was losing control of Tatjana, and in true abusive partner fashion, he couldn't stand that thought.
He would tell everybody. He would just trash her. Like she's this horrible person, and like he was trying to manipulate it and convince his kids that she was cheating on him. Like just that she's just this horrible person. But I think deep down, he was infatuated with her. He was madly in love with her. And he's probably thinking, how dare you leave me?
Anyone who has experienced an abusive relationship or knows someone who has understands that escaping such situations is just the beginning of a long journey towards recovery. In fact, the two most dangerous times in an abuse victim's life are leaving an abusive relationship or beginning a new relationship free from their abuser. Usually this sets off a violent cycle from the abuser who has now truly lost control. However, entering a new relationship with a non-abusive partner can be a surprising and challenging transition. Here's Jason sharing his experience about dating Tatjana, who had previously been controlled by her ex.
Like, she would always ask me, she's like, are you okay if I go to the gym? I'm like, yeah, go to the gym. Have fun. And then she'd ask me again, she goes, is it okay if I go for wine with my girlfriend? I'm like, yeah. If you want to have a couple glasses, just give me a call. I'll come pick you up. Like, she was just like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I want you to have friends. I want to be part of your friend group too, if you want me there.
Now that we've detailed some of the events that Jason and Tatjana experienced leading up to April 2024, we're going to let Jason explain the immediate timeline in the weeks right before April 13th, 2024, and then what happened on that day.
Basically, for 2 weeks prior, his presence around my property was very heavy. Constantly taking Yan. He would sit at the top of my driveway for like 45 minutes to an hour and just be sitting up there and just really would like kind of harassing us. And Tatjana, like, even though they had like a court order with his parenting time was only on the weekends and whatever else, he would come here during the week and we're like, you know what? Yeah, if you want to take Yan, go ahead, take him. Go out for dinner, whatever. Have fun. He had already lost his contact with Selena. She cut him off like 6-7 months ago. She got very tired of all of his lies, and that was another reason why I was telling Tatjana to save her messages, is because he was messaging. He wouldn't message her back on like timelines and when they're going to meet and this and that. And then he would try to twist things around and tell the kids, Selena in particular, that that's not what he said and whatever else. And your mom's nothing but a liar and this and that. So Selena would come back to us and then she'd be all mad at her mom and being like a lot of attitude. And Tatjana and I are like, well, what's going on? Like, well, dad said this. And then she's mad at us. So Tatjana said, no, that's not here. She's like, here, read the message. That's exactly what was said. So Selena started catching on. So then what happened was Selena started calling him out and saying, you know what? You're full of it. You're lying to me. I seen the messages. You need to stop. And so now he started to lose the power over his daughter. And I think it just infuriated him that now he's starting to lose trust because he's being caught in his own lies. But who else can he manipulate? Well, 9-year-old boy. So that's what he's been doing. Basically taking Yan constantly. Tatjana didn't really have an issue with it, but then we had some things, some events lined up, and he just showed up to the top of the driveway. I think it was on the Wednesday before the murder. Um, he said, well, I'm here. Can I have Yan? And Tatjana, I think, told him something like, we have things planned, not today. You can have them on Friday at 5 o'clock when your parenting time starts. And he just messaged her back and said, you really want to go down that road? And we're like, we have things planned. So we just kind of left it at that. Well, he basically stayed at the top of my drive for another 30 minutes. And then all of a sudden he left. We could see him drive away. So he was pretty pissed off. Like, he sped away fast. And then he never showed up at all until that Saturday. Even though his parenting time started on the Friday, he didn't even come back on the Friday. So that Friday came around, and just me and her were talking. I'm like, did you even hear from your ex? And she's like, no, he never messaged me. I said, well, he's losing his parenting time. This is his time.
Okay, so leading up to April 13th, 2024, Vitali was becoming more erratic and unpredictable. Over the last 6 months, he was allegedly moving. He had moved his stuff into the storage locker across the street from Jason and Tatjana. His daughter Selena had cut him off. He had a police wellness check, and he was trying to spend more time with Yan. However, that week he bailed on even seeing Yan. Now, Saturday, April 13th rolled around, and this is the day that Tatjana went missing. If you are familiar with this story from reading the news or the media reports on this, you will not have a full grasp of the horror that unfolded that day. Jason offered to walk us through what happened that morning.
She texted me on that Saturday morning, the 13th in the morning, and she said, my ex is here. My ex called me. He is here. He's giving Yan the rest of his stuff, and he's saying bye to him. And I said, oh, okay. So I texted her back. I was in the back of my property in my shop. I was working. So before I get into that, I had told her after the death threats in December, and I pointed to her and I said, you promised me never to be alone with this guy again. I said, I'm freaked out. I said, it's scary what he's doing. Never, 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 ever be alone with him ever again. Promise me. And she said, yes, I promise, never again. So then on the 13th, I was under the assumption she wouldn't go near him. So she texted me, he's here at the top of the driveway, whatever, he's giving stuff to Yan, and then he's moving. And I said, well, if he's moving, we need to, so I texted her back and I said, if he's moving, we need to know where he's going to. That is our business. We need something in writing for guardianship or whatever, because I don't want to fight with this crap anymore. And then she read that message, and then that was the last message she ever seen. I came out of my shop about maybe 10 minutes later, not even 7 minutes, I think it was. After that text message, I responded to her. And I came out of my shop. I walked up on top of my deck, and I could see the top of the road where he was usually parking. And I didn't see a vehicle. So I just immediately just said in my own brain, I said, well, oh, maybe he's already gone, or maybe he took Yan and they went for breakfast or something. He's took for a drive. Who knows, right? So I came up the stairs, went inside, came inside my house. I was just taking my shoes off, and I could hear some movement. And I peeked around the corner into the bedroom, and Yan was there with my son, and they're going through a suitcase, just a little carry-on suitcase. And I said, oh, what are you kids doing? And they just said, well, we're just going through some stuff that my dad gave me. And I said, oh, okay, well, your dad's already gone. And Yan said, no, he's talking to mom. And I said, what do you mean he's talking to mom? Yeah, mom's at the top of the driveway talking to dad. I said, right there, my guts dropped. And I just said, there's nobody at the top of the driveway, Yan. He just kind of put his hands up. He's like, "Well, I don't know. I don't know." And I said, "Are you sure your mom went up there?" He says, "Yeah, mom went up to the top of the driveway to talk to dad." So I put my shoes right back on and I freaking ran up to the top of my driveway and there's nothing, gone. So, like, I even looked for tire tracks, like skid marks, whatever. And I knew that instant, I knew something was wrong. So I came back down. I was freaking out. I grabbed my keys. I got in my vehicle and I started driving to all the places we knew that he was kind of hanging out. And we couldn't find him. We couldn't find the vehicle, couldn't find her. Searched until probably, well, it was about 9:30, and I had the police on it. I told him, I said, "Something's happened." And I said, "This is not," she asked me, "missing for 24 hours." I'm like, "Something's happened." I said, this motherfucker has probably killed her." And I just said, "I am feared for her life, and I'm feared that," because they're like, "Well, how do you know this?" And I said, "Because she promised me she would never be alone with him, and she promised me that, like, she would never get in a vehicle with him. I know that for a fact. She would never get in a vehicle with him." I left it at that, and we just kept on searching. It ended up that I had access to video footage from the mini storage next door to me. And I know the owners over there, and they just said, "If you could figure out how the video recorder works, go ahead. You can, have at it." So I did. So I got to the raw footage because I didn't know if he went left or right down the highway, and that's what I wanted to know. We found out that he went right towards Lumby, but I watched it like it was really crappy footage. I don't know how much the police were able to clear it up, um, but I could see after watching it about 4 or 5 times, I could see him and Yan standing beside his car with the passenger door open, and I could see Yan walking down my driveway because I could see him starting to get smaller and smaller on the TV screen, and I could see Tatjana coming up. So they crossed paths, and she got close to his car, and I think she was close enough to his car that he felt she's close enough, and I can see a very fast movement. I could see his whole body quickly move, and he grabbed her and threw her into the car. I know he didn't get out of the car to go back. Like, he didn't exit the vehicle and then go around into the driver's side. He actually crawled over top of her. So I don't know if the murder happened at the top of my driveway. I don't know if he knocked her out. I don't know anything. The police aren't telling me. I have no coroner's report. They're not giving me a time of death. They're not giving me a cause of death. Nothing.
We know that was a lot of information. So to recap, Vitali shows up at their residence on Saturday, April 13th, 2024, under the guise of wanting to see his son Yan in order to say goodbye and to let him know that he can have all of his items that are in the storage facility that he's renting near Jason's residence. Jason was out on their property doing some work when he received a text message from Tatjana letting him know that Vitali was there. The two had an understanding at this point that under no circumstances would Tatjana allow herself to be alone with Vitali. We may never know exactly what happened at the top of that driveway or how Vitali was able to convince Tatjana to approach the vehicle, but once she had been lured to where the car was parked, some sort of altercation took place in which Vitali was able to get Tatjana into the vehicle and drive off with her. Heartbreakingly, Tatjana's 9-year-old son Yan was not yet in the house when his mother was attacked.
So he didn't even wait until his 9-year-old son was into the house. So Yan had told me that when they were at the top of the driveway talking, he told Yan specifically, he said, "I need to talk to mom. I'm going to call her up here. And when she comes up, you need to go. And whatever you hear, you don't turn back. You just keep on going because it's adult talk. There's going to be some yelling. Just keep on going, no matter what." So here's this boy who absolutely adores and loves his dad. He's going to obey him. And Jan said he was just at the very bottom of the driveway, not even at the house, and he could hear mom screaming and yelling. And he said she wasn't screaming and yelling and fighting. He said she was screaming for help. So he heard it all. And I get to deal with that when he gets older and he's processing it, because those thoughts and those sounds are going through his head right now. He just started processing a little bit last week. At 9 years old, you're hearing your mother getting murdered.
Searches began immediately in the hours after Tatjana was kidnapped from her residence on the morning of April 13th, 2024. The media was quick to act, ensuring the public was aware that they were to look out for a black Audi A4, and if anyone knew where Vitali Stefanski was, they were to call 911. The following day, on April 14th, 2024, Tatjana's daughter Selena took to social media to make some posts to increase awareness about her mother going missing. She posted a few different photos of Vitali with text on them saying, quote, "The Audi has been located, but Tatjana and Vitali are still not found. Please look for either of these individuals. Do not approach Vitali as he is extremely unstable and unpredictable." Then came a tragic update. The North Okanagan RCMP had located the body of a woman on April 14th in a rural location off Maple Lake Road, just a short drive from the residence where Tatjana had been kidnapped from. Also located in the vicinity of the body was a man who was arrested. The RCMP did not release the identity of this man or confirm the identity of the body that was located. They did, however, share that the man who had been arrested had since been released from custody with conditions. Of course, these remains were Tatjana's, and the man who was arrested was her ex-husband, Vitali Stefanski. The public reaction to his release was that of shock and anger, as was Tatjana's family's reaction. Here's a post Selena made on her Facebook. Quote, "Tatjana has been found. Unfortunately, she isn't with us anymore. We loved her so much, and she's in a better place now. Vitali is left to roam free. He has been released from custody, which is absolutely disgusting. He was also apprehended hours after being released 600 meters from our home and had been seen walking towards our property. He was released once again after that. Hope the justice system will figure itself out, because I am at a loss for words. We are not safe as a family with him free. She was an amazing mother, and I would never want anyone else to replace her. My only wish is to be able to talk to her one more time." Here's what Jason remembers about the following day, April 14th, 2024.
On April the 14th, that's the day that they came to tell me. We were still searching and searching and searching, and the major crimes detectives just they gave me a phone call and they said, "Are you going to be home in an hour or so?" And I said, "Yeah, I will be." And they said, "Okay, well, we're going to swing by and give you an update." And then they showed up here, and when they showed up, I knew. I knew they had found her, and I knew she wasn't alive.
We wanted to know more about what Jason knew about the location where police found the vehicle, Tatjana's remains, and Vitali.
I don't know where. No, I think his car was discovered empty, abandoned. And then she was on somebody's property down an embankment or something, like in a ditch. I don't know. Like, some people have told me like it's just like he dumped her like she was a piece of trash. And then he was found in the vicinity. I don't know how close he was to her.
Jason has a suspicion that Vitali's intention that day was a murder-suicide, as it is rumored that Vitali had been taken to hospital shortly after he was detained. Adding to this theory, a friend of Jason's said that he had come across some YouTube videos that were allegedly made by Vitali. These videos are in Russian, but in them he is saying some very disturbing things. The friend described it almost as cult-like. He talked about things like being able to die and return to the earth, but only being able to do so if you died alongside a significant other. Jason has also been told by investigators that there's a lot that he doesn't know yet, and he will not know until this case goes to trial. And some of that information will be shocking. So back to the events that happened post the initial arrest of Vitali when he was found in the vicinity of Tatjana's body. Here's Jason with what he experienced in the days afterwards.
when they arrested him, they told us that they have him in custody. So it was, I think it was the 15th. Yes, it was the 15th in the morning that I was called by the major crimes detectives again, and they said that they have to release him. And I was just like, what? And they said, yeah, we can't hold him for too long. And I'm like, I don't get that. Like, that's just ridiculous. And they said, well, don't worry, he's being watched. And I said, okay, but I don't like this. Like, how is he free? Um, uh, like, I don't know the law. They're talking about like this Jordan rule or something, and I don't get it. I don't understand it. What I do understand of the Jordan rule is something that was brought in on a trafficking case. Well, we're talking about a murder case there. This is totally different. This should not even apply. But this is what they were tagging or telling me anyway. I was like, I was freaked out that they're letting him out. They said, don't worry, we're watching him. About 2.5 hours, I'm presuming, after he was released, um, there's there's a guy that shows up to my property, and the kids came and said, Jay, there's some guy here. He says he's friends with Vitali. I'm like, what? And I was on a phone call. I'm like, hey, I gotta go. So I hung up the phone call and ran outside and I was like, hey, who are you? I'm armed. So this guy kind of looks at me, he's like, oh, like he's kind of like a little bit freaked out. I said, oh no, I said, we just had some complications around the property here lately. So I said, so you know Vitali? And he says, yeah. He said, Vitali sent me here, and he's wants to get a cell phone, some keys, and then there's some yellow documentation or some papers that he needed. I was like, oh, okay. And like, I could read the guy's body language pretty decent. He didn't know anything. He knew nothing that was going on. So I was like, okay. I said, let me just go and let me go see if I can find that stuff for you. So I came back inside. I talked to the kids a little bit, and then Selena was saying, like, I think I know him. So anyway, me and the kids went back outside. Well, it was Selena and her boyfriend. And we were talking with him, and she's like, oh, hey, yeah, yeah. Oh, now I remember you. So it was actually somebody that even Selena knew. And they were talking and kind of laughing and joking around and stuff. So anyway, I told the kids, I said, just stall him. I'm going to call the police. So I called the police. Two members came, met me came straight to my property, and they started talking to this guy. And the guy was really itching to leave. And I just said, listen, I said, I think you might want to talk to the police here. He goes, me? What I do? What I do? And I'm like, you didn't do anything wrong. I said, I think they just have a couple questions for you and then you'll be on your way. He's like, okay. So they talked to him. Sure enough, they let him go. I don't know exactly how it happened, but the police came up. They said, okay, well, we had a talk with him, let him on his way, whatever, he's heading back home. And I said, okay, well, I said, that just really freaked us out that he's like, I said, this is like indirect contact though. He's sending people to my property. So the police said, yeah, okay, whatever. We're going to have a little chit chat with him. They left and they arrested Vitali just up the road from my house. 2.5 hours after his initial release, and they told me that they're watching him and he's at my freaking house. That doesn't make me feel good. So, needless to say, we packed up all of our stuff and any initial stuff, and I said, we are out of here. We're going to get an Airbnb off the books or something. I'm like, we cannot be in this house with him being free. So we stressed our situation to police, and police are like, yeah, but you have a protection order. I'm like, that protection order means nothing. It's a piece of paper. At most, it's going to give him a paper cut. I said, he doesn't care. And he will tell you whatever he wants to manipulate you into believing that he wasn't just coming here he was only coming here for the cell phone. That's all he wanted. Because that's what he said. And then he said that he didn't understand. So they released him again. And I said, it's a direct breach to the first release. And they said, well, no, it was written wrong and this and that. I'm like, you guys write protection orders all the time. You would think you would know how to write it. So he played the stupid card and got off on it. So they released him again.
So Jason and the kids were pretty terrified after Vitali showed up to their property, even though he had a protection order against him. Shortly after this, they went into hiding. However, no safe house was offered to them and they had to find a place on their own. So, in the wake of his partner being violently murdered, Jason had to look up Airbnbs for a safe place to take himself and Tatjana's children in order to avoid the alleged murderer that was allowed to roam free. Of course, when the public found out that Vitali had come back to the property and was arrested and then released a second time, the reaction was outrage. There were even protests planned in the community of Lumby, but those wound up being canceled. Jason was quoted as saying, quote, "I would like everyone to please understand that the problem lies at a way higher level than the police. Trust me, they're doing all they can within the laws and regulations. Do not lash out at them. Things need to change, like tracking devices, or something could have been part of the release conditions, or more security for families like us who can't even go home because we're scared for our lives." We asked Jason what happened during the time he and Tatjana's kids were living in hiding.
Yeah, so while we were in hiding, we didn't really hear anything of him. We had seen him a few times while we were driving through the Vernon area. We seen him walking on the road, but we had switched vehicles, so he didn't see us. Um, there was another time where there was, in my opinion, another indirect contact. He went as far as he went to Safeway, to the flower department, and he tried to buy flowers to send to Tatjana's celebration of life. And they recognized him and they sent him away.
Tatjana's celebration of life was held on April 26, 2024, and over 200 people showed up to pay their respects. The celebration of life was held at Lumby's Oval Park, and we want to highlight just how amazing the community of Lumby has been in the wake of Tatjana's murder. Ida's Bakery held a fundraiser to raise money for the family, and they donated 10% of their sales, which led them to sell out all of their apple fritters before 8 a.m. A local homeschooling group also held a memorial lantern building event in a church basement. On Mother's Day, the ACE Building Center held a lunch event and donated all of their proceeds that covered Tatjana's family's legal costs. There has also been an incredibly successful GoFundMe. So to everybody in Lumby who's listening to this episode, we just want to say from True North True Crime, you guys did an amazing job of helping this family to feel supported. And we want to thank each and every one of you for showing up in their time of need.
We want to give our audience an update on where things stand in this case as of writing this episode in late June 2024. On Friday, May 31st, 2024, Vitali was finally arrested and charged with second-degree murder in connection with Tatjana's death. We do find it interesting that the charge is second degree and not first degree, as there does seem to be evidence of premeditation in this case, and it seems as though the murder was carried out during the forcible confinement of Tatjana as well. That being said, there is only so much information that has been released to the public at this stage, and we are bound to find out more information that may answer these questions as time goes on and the case goes to trial. We wanted to hear from Jason about what it was like when he found out that Vitali had finally been arrested and charged.
Well, I was relieved. At least we know that he's behind bars, at least till the 24th now. So he had he had a bail hearing already and it was denied. They didn't think he was going to have a bail hearing until tomorrow, till Monday. Because they only had a JP, I guess, but they found an JP doesn't have the power, I guess, to do the bail hearing for this kind of a criminal offense. So they need an actual judge, but I guess they did find a judge. So he went before a judge and they denied bail right away. So he's detained behind bars right now until the 24th. I believe that's going to be another bail hearing, but I think there's already discussion that it's also going to be denied. So, because they got to review, they got to give them lawyers and stuff like that, and Crown another few weeks or something to review all the material. So we're hoping that so the investigation team, basically, they've bare minimum, we got them on murder 2 right now. They have the evidence to back that, but they're still pushing for the evidence to go to murder 1. So that's the premeditation. So they're working on all that stuff.
When looking at Vitali's court records, we can see his first court appearance in connection with Tatjana's murder was June 1st, 2024. The reason for this appearance is JIR, which is used to indicate an appearance by an accused who is in custody on the matter before the court. This is used until bail has been granted, denied, or the accused has chosen to remain in custody by consent. The result of this appearance was IBC, which essentially means that all parties consented to adjourning and meeting at a future date. His next appearance was just a few days ago on June 24th, and the reason for this appearance was FXD, or to fix a date, which is likely referring to fixing a date for the next appearance. The outcome of this court appearance was IBD. This means that a court hearing is postponed to a later date because the person being accused or their lawyer has asked for that. So we're assuming this means that he was denied bail a second time. He does have a future court date scheduled for July 25th, 2024, for which the reason is labeled CLC, which means to consult with counsel. So it doesn't look as though things are progressing very quickly, as seems to be typical in this day and age in our justice system. Currently, Vitali Stefanski remains in custody.
Jason is now left to pick up the pieces in the wake of the horrific events of April 13th, 2024. He is now a single father with shared custody of his own child. But not only that, he has the full guardianship of Tatjana's son and daughter. There is still a long road ahead for this family, which will likely be made even longer should Vitali plead not guilty or not criminally responsible, forcing the family to endure a long and traumatizing trial that will end in about 18 months, not including sentencing, if it comes to that. And then, there are the appeals. We wanted to provide Jason with a platform to share his experience with Canada's justice system thus far.
It's frustrating. I understand that they need to have beyond a doubt, right? I do get that. The part that I don't get is why when you have, for one, you have evidence in the car, you have a video footage, like you have raw proof, evidence. Just initially, why can he not be detained so then we could live freely at least? That's what needs to change. The life that me and these children have had to live in the last 45 days, I lost track. I I do not wish this pain in this life on anybody. Not even some of my worst enemies. I don't have many enemies though. But like I seriously, I do not wish this upon anybody. Constantly looking over our shoulders, feared for our lives, sleeping with knives, having to bring my dogs inside, like just double locking, triple locking stuff everywhere we go. I don't know. It's just, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Things got to change. There's got to be like a tier system or something like, okay, what is the excessiveness of the crime? What is the evidence? Let's put you into this bracket or that bracket. Okay. I understand that he has human rights. I get that. But what about Tatjana's rights? They're completely gone, and he took those. She can't speak. She only has me. And with all the facts of him, 2.5 hours later or whatever it was, coming back to my property, it's like, do you guys not understand that you could have potentially had 3 more murders? Are you guys not taking this serious? Where's protection for us? There was nothing.
Jason has been frustrated at all levels trying to fight for justice for Tatjana over these past few months. But we do want to underscore that Jason shared with us that he has a great relationship with the main investigators of this case, and that they have been very supportive and accessible to Jason throughout his experience thus far. But that hasn't been his experience across the board. When it comes to politicians, they all want to publicly express their anger and promises that change is coming should you vote for them. How many of those sentiments are reality, though? Several politicians made sure to be seen at Tatjana's vigil that was held in April. That included the mayor of Lumby, Kevin Atkin, the BC United leader, Kevin Falcon, and Mel Arnold, who is the Conservative MP for the North Okanagan-Shuswap region. It should be noted that Mel Arnold is in the Conservative Party, which is currently in the opposition. The opposition does not really have the power to change laws with the current arrangement of the House. But like any member of Parliament, he can present issues from his constituents in the House. Here's Jason's thoughts on his interactions with the politicians and what he hopes for moving forward.
Mel Arnold came up and talked to me and he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Jason. So sorry for your loss. It's devastating. Just to let you know that when the investigation's over, we're going to go full force on this." I said, "What are you talking about, Mel?" And he's like, "Oh, we're going to push this. This is going national." And this, I'm like, "So why isn't it going national now?" "Oh, because we don't want to jeopardize the investigation." I said, "You know what, Mel?" I said, "The investigation is one entity." I said, "That's not even justice for Tatjana." I said, "We're using justice for Tatjana as basically the title." I said, "Yeah, we want the murder solved, but we have to give them time to do their job." I said, "Justice for Tatjana is also justice for everybody. And the meaning behind this is to get the freaking catch and release laws changed. Something needs to happen. There needs to be protection in place for the domestic violence. Like, this is domestic violence, and like, I'm worried for my life. Well, not now, but you know what? We were. And there was nothing for us. And I was trying to I told Mel basically, I just said, "You know what? You're missing the punchline, buddy. You should have this to Pierre Poilievre in the House of Commons right now. You should be talking about this. There's nothing, if you don't go in there and say anything in particular about the investigation, all you're doing is you're saying what had happened. And then you touch base on, look at the nightmare that Jason and these two children, Tatjana's children, are living because of this catch and release. This is what needs to." I said, "This is a perfect example."
When we asked Jason how our listeners could help, one sentiment kept coming up, and that was justice for Tatjana is justice for all. Domestic violence is a huge problem in our society, and there needs to be better resources in place for victims. Jason wants to see more resources that act as safe houses for people fleeing their abusers. Listeners who are looking for a way to help Jason and Tatjana's kids can follow the Facebook group Justice for Tatjana, and that's TATJANA, to get the most up-to-date information and any other initiatives that come from this case. If you're able to donate to the GoFundMe that is in place to support Tatjana's family, that's also a great way to help. We will link both the Facebook group as well as the GoFundMe in the show notes of this episode. Before we wrap up this episode, we wanted to give Jason a chance to share anything else he wanted our listeners to know about Tatjana.
She was it's the best thing that ever happened to me. It's so unfortunate. Just like, I don't know. It's so hard to fathom this happening to such a beautiful person. I she didn't just tell me that she loved me. Like, she showed me. Like, 100% she showed me, and I've never had that before. Like, it was kind of showed, but now after Tatjana, I was like, wow. Like, no, like, you are actually, like, in love with me. Like, she cared so much for her children. She just put everybody in front of herself always, even to the simplest thing as running the kids to the school bus. She didn't want me to do it because they're her kids. I'm like, "No, you're already logged in for work." I said, "I'm going to take the kids." She just didn't, she just cared so much. I'm like, I've done heavy construction all my life. I'm like foul mouthed and, like, lots of swearing and pretty rough and gruff guy, and she has a hard time to say shit. You know, she just so professional and always just so dressed up and beautiful and everything. Just always so proper. And she just loved love. She just loved everything. And like I look back and I'm like, how did I ever get this woman? I don't deserve her. I don't deserve her. Like she like I've always been a strong person, and I think she knew that. She knew she knew that she and her children were safe with me. She knew that I was strong and I would always protect. But it was the manipulation from him to get her to come up the driveway. That's all it took, was her to go up there. And after me telling her so many times I didn't want her anywhere near him, he probably told her, I have something I have to give to you, and I have to give it to you right now. Um, and I'm leaving. Instead of her saying, leave it at the top of the driveway or mail it to me, he manipulated her into going up there. I've never met anybody that's had so much love and so much care. She was solid. She was genuine. And I see her every day with her children. Her children love me. Obviously, I love them too.
This case is still in its infancy. There is a long road ahead, and we will, in all likelihood, be making an updated episode on this case down the road when there's more information available. Until then, if you want to stay updated on the latest developments, we'd urge you to follow the Justice for Tatjana Facebook group. If you don't have Facebook, we will also post any large updates on the case on our Instagram at TNTCPod. That's all we have for this case as of today. We'd like to once again thank Jason Gaudreault for sitting down with us to remember what a beautiful person Tatjana was, for sharing his experience over the last few months, and for trusting us to cover this case and bring more awareness. We will see you again soon with a brand new episode. Until then, stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe.